become future stars. Chapter 1. The Lost Child. It was festival of spring. From the wintry shades of narrow lanes and alleys emerged a gaily clad humanity, thick as a swarm of bright-colored rabbits issuing from a warren. They entered the flooded sea of sparkling silver sunshine outside the city gates and sped towards the fair. Some walked, some rode on horses, others sat, being carried in bamboo and bullock carts. One little boy ran between his parents' legs, brimming over with life and laughter. The joyous morning gave greeting and unashamed invitations to all to come away into the fields, full of flowers and song. "Come, child, come," called his parents as he lagged behind, arrested by the toys in the shops that lined the way. He hurried towards his parents, his feet obedient to their call, his eyes still lingering on the receding toys. As he came to where they had stopped to wait for him, he could not suppress the desire of his heart. Even though the boy saw the cold stare of refusal in their eyes, he could not bury his wish. "I want that toy," he pleaded. His father looked at him red-eyed in his familiar tyrant's way. His mother, melted by the free spurts of the day, was tender and giving him her finger to catch, said, "Look, child, what is before you?" Word meaning: narrow, constricted. Alleys, constricted paths. Lingering, pausing, staying, receding, going back. The faint disgust of the child's unfulfilled desire had hardly been quelled in the heavy, pouting sob of a breath, ether, when the pleasure of what was before him filled his eyes. They had left the dusty road on which they had walked so far. It wended its weary way circuitously to the north. They had come upon a footpath in a field. It was a powering mustard field, pale like melting gold as it swept across miles and miles of even land, a river of yellow liquid light, ebbing and falling with each fresh eddy of wild wind, and straying in places into broad rich tributary streams, yet running in a constant sunny sweep towards the distant mirage of an ocean of silver light. Where it ended, on one side, stood a cluster of low mud-walled houses, thrown into relief by a dense crowd of yellow-robed men and women from which arose a high-pitched sequence of whistling, creaking, squeaking, roaring, humming noises, sweeping across the groves to the blue-throated sky like the weird, strange sound of Siva's mad laughter. The child looked up to his father and, saturated with the shrill joy and wonder of his vast glory, and feeling that they too wore the evidence of this pure delight in their faces, he left the footpath and plunged headlong into the field, prancing like a young colt, his small feet timing with the fitful gusts of wind that came rich with the fragrance of more distant fields. A group of dragonflies were bustling about on their gaudy purple wings, intercepting the flight of a lone black butterfly in search of sweetness from the flowers. The child followed them in the air with his gaze, till one of them would go fluttering, flapping, up into the air. When he had almost caught it in his hands, one bold black bee, having evaded. Word meaning: pouting sob. Sob with lips pushed out, circuitously, going a long way round. Ebbing, flowing down. Eddy, circular movement. Capture, sought to tempt him by whining round his ear and nearly settled on his lips, when his mother gave a cautionary call. "Come, child, come on to the footpath." He ran towards his parents gaily and walked abreast of them for a while, being, however, soon left behind, attracted by the little insects and worms along the footpath that were teeming out from their hiding places to enjoy the sunshine. "Come, child, come," his parents called from the shade of a grove where they had seated themselves on the edge of a well. He ran towards them. An old banyan tree here outstretched its powerful arms over the blossoming jack and jamun and neem and champak and sirisha and cast its shadows across beds of golden cassia and crimson gulmohar as an old grandmother spread her skirts over her young ones. But the blushing blossoms freely offered their adoration to the sun in spite of their protecting chaperone, by half covering themselves, and the sweet perfume of their pollen mingled with the soft, cool breeze that came and went in little puffs, only to be wafted aloft by a stronger breeze. A shower of young flowers fell upon the child as he entered the grove and, forgetting his parents, he began to gather the raining petals in his hands. But lo! He heard the cooing of the doves and ran towards his parents, shouting, "The dove! The dove!" The raining petals dropped from his hands. A curious look was in his parents' face till a koel struck out a note of love and released their pent-up souls. "Come, child, come." They called to the child, who had now gone running in wild capers round the banyan tree, and gathering him up they took the narrow, winding footpath which led to the fair through the mustard field. As they neared the village, the child could see many other footpaths full of throngs, converging to the whirlpool of the fair, and felt at once repelled and fascinated by the confusion of the world he was entering. A sweetmeat seller hawked gulab jamun, rasgulla, burfi, jalebi at the corner to the entrance, and crowd pressed round his counter at the foot on an architecture of many-colored sweets decorated with leaves of silver and gold. The child stared open-eyed and his mouth watered for the burfi that was his favorite sweet. "I want that burfi," he slowly murmured. But he hardly knew as that his plea would be heeded or not, because his parents would say he was greedy. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A flower seller hawked a garland of gulmohar, a gulmohar. The child seemed irresistibly drawn by implacable sweetness of the scents that came floating on the wings of word meaning, adoration, admiration, chaperone, escort of a girl, repelled, resisted, heeded, paid attention, languid air. He went towards the basket where the flowers were heaped and half murmured, "I want that garland." But he well knew his parents would refuse to buy him those flowers and they would say they were cheap. So without waiting for an answer, he moved on. A man stood holding a pole with yellow, red, green and purple balloons flying from it. The child was simply carried away by the rainbow glory of the silken colors, and he was possessed with an overwhelming desire to possess them all. But he well knew his parents that they would never buy him the balloons because they would say he was too old to play with such toys. So he walked on farther. A juggler stood playing a flute to a snake which called itself in a basket, its head raised in a graceful bend like the neck of swan, while the music stole its invincible ears like the gentle rippling of a miniature waterfall. The child went towards the juggler. But knowing his parents had forbidden him to hear such coarse music as the jugglers played, he proceeded farther. There was a roundabout moving in full swing. Men, women and children carried away in a whirling motion, shrieked and cried with dizzy laughter. The child watched them intently going round and round, a pink blush of smile on his face, his rippling with the same movement, his lips pouted in amazement, till he felt that himself was being carried round. The ring seemed to go fiercely at first, then gradually it began to move slowly. Presently the child, wrapped finger in his mouth, held it stop. This time, before his overpowering love for the anticipated sensation of movement had been chilled by thought of his parents' eternal denial, he made a bold request, "I want to go on the roundabout, please, father, mother." There was no reply. He turned to look at his parents. They were not there ahead of him. He turned to look on either side. They were not there. He looked behind. There was no sign of them. A full deep cry rose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body he ran from where he stood, crying in red fear, "Mother, father." Tears rolled down from his eyes, hot and fierce. His flushed face was convulsed with fear. Panic-stricken, he ran to one side first, then to the other, hither and thither in all directions, knowing nowhere to go. "Mother, father," he wailed with a moist, shrill breath now, his throat being wet with swallowing the spittle. His yellow turban came untied and his clothes, wet with perspiration, became muddy where the dust had mixed with the sweat of his body. His light frame seemed heavy as a mass of lead. Having run to and fro in a rage of running for a while, he stood defeated, his cries suppressed into sobs. At little distances on the green grass he could see, through his filmy eyes, men and women talking. He tried to look intently among the patches of bright yellow. Word meaning: miniature, much smaller than normal. Dizzy, causing a whirling sensation. Fiercely, dangerously, wrapped, deep in thought. Clothes, but there was no sign of his father and mother among these people, who seemed to laugh and talk just for the sake of laughing and talking. He ran hotly again, this time to a shrine to which people seemed to be crowding. Every little inch of space here was congested with men, but he ran through people's legs, his little sob lingering, "Mother, Father." Near the entrance to the temple, however, the crowd became very thick. Men jostled each other, heavy men, with lashing, murderous eyes and hefty shoulders. The poor child struggled to thrust away between their feet, but, knocked to and fro by their brutal movements, he might have been trampled underfoot had he not shrieked at the highest pitch of his voice, "Mother, Father!" A man in the surging crowd heard his cry and, stopping with very great difficulty, lifted him up in his arms. "How did you get here, child? Whose baby are you?" the man asked as he stared clear of the mass. The child wept more bitterly than ever now and only cried, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man tried to soothe him by taking him to the roundabout. "Will you have a lift on the horse?" he gently asked as he approached the ring. The child's throat tore into 1,000 shrill sobs and he only shouted, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man headed towards the place where the juggler still played on the flute to the dancing cobra. "Listen to that nice music, child," he pleaded. But the child shut his ears with his finger and shouted his double-pitched strain, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man took him near the balloons, thinking the bright colors of the balloons would distract the child's attention and quieten him. "Would you like a rainbow-colored balloon?" he persuasively asked. The child turned his eyes from the flying balloons and just sobbed, "I want my mother, I want my father." The man, still importunate in his kindly desire to make the child happy, bore him to the gate where the flower seller sat. "Look. Can you smell those nice flowers, child? Would you like a garland to put round your neck?" The child turned his nose away from the basket and reiterated his sob, "I want my mother, I want my father." Thinking to humor his disconsolate charge by a gift of sweets, the man took him to the counter of sweet shop. "What sweets would you like, child?" he asked. The child turned his face from the sweet shop and only sobbed, "I want my mother, I want my father." Word meaning: jostled, bulldoze, trampled, treaded underfoot. Shrill, high and sharp. Importunate, unreasonably. Like, share, and subscribe.